tell you how excited I am to be here. I'll tell you I have something in common with trees, and that is I have sap. I get extremely sappy. And I, believe it or not, I'm extremely emotional about this. And so I will tear up, which is a little crazy. First, I want to thank all of those who, one at the agency, at the Department of Natural Resources, that have made this possible over many, many years of me sort of big ideas, hairy, audacious ideas, pulling them American Forest. I got to give a shout out to TNC. I've known about the work that you guys have been doing in the urban areas, not just the rural areas, that is really sort of lying underground, all this work and raising the profile of it. And then all the cities and nonprofit organizations and community organizations that like tirelessly are putting their hands in the dirt, constantly planting more and more trees and planting the seeds of what we need in urban forestry. Is so much gratitude. Part of why this is so special for me on a number of fronts. One, we are making history today. We truly are. This exciting, innovative partnership between the Department of Natural Resources and American Forest and all of you to create the first ever statewide tree equity collaborative and also true tree equity in every neighborhood of the state is one of a kind. We're making history today, and we're going to keep on making it every day. In addition to that, I'll just start by saying that this dream came out of me and Jad Daly, the CEO of American Forest, sitting down at dinner with a napkin in hand. And I'm asking, we're doing work in forest restoration, we're doing work in forest reforestation in the rural areas, and I'm like, we're leaving parts of our community behind, especially in the Evergreen State. We are the Evergreen State. We should cover the entire state in trees, from the most dense urban areas to the most rural areas. And he talked about tree equity, and he talked about what they're doing in places like Phoenix and Detroit. And I said, well, why don't we take this to the statewide scale? And all of the work you guys have been doing behind the scenes for many, many years is lifting up now that work into this organization and this program. It's also a very special moment for me because for me, the trees have always meant an enormous amount. I grew up in two different households. One had a very stable household where the streets were lined with horse chestnut trees. My father wouldn't let me watch TV or listen to rock and roll. I could only listen to NPR and classical music, right? And no TV. So I found my refuge in the trees. And we would spend our summer days literally climbing those trees or gathering horse chestnuts. And we would pile them high, and we'd set teams across the street, and we would just bomb each other for 8 hours, right? One after another, right? And you're getting pelted. I have t-shirts from my childhood that still have those horse chestnut marks on my shirt. It's not on my skin, thankfully it healed, but it brought so much joy. It brought so much entertainment. And it also brought team collaboration and also ability to say, I'm sorry I hurt you, let's forgive each other and move on and join teams the next day. The other part of my childhood was one where we moved around a lot and moved around from friend's home to friend's home and apartment to apartment. And what I realized at a very small age is that not all neighborhoods are treated the same. Where we didn't have parks, we had parking lots. We didn't have track fields, we had railroad tracks. We had very few trees to play in, and it was very, very apparent to just even a small child. And it was then that I realized that we have the ability and the responsibility, the moral responsibility, to transform every single neighborhood and community in our cities, in our state, in our country. And it starts with us, and it starts with us recognizing how we have created this inequity going back 50 plus years. And it's our responsibility to now address that inequity by bringing more trees, more green spaces into the neighborhoods and communities that for so long have been left without. And that's why this opportunity is such a huge one, right? It's such a huge one for us. As I have now learned to say, is trees are no longer nice to have, they are a must have. And it's even more so beyond the areas of just physical, mental, and emotional health that our communities deserve. It goes to now the fact that the greatest deadliest weather disaster in America is now heat. It is now heat. We might think that's shocking after we've had rain and we have those cold gray days, but the fact is we know here in Washington State, when the heat dome hit just a few years ago, 120 people's lives were lost. We can look even farther south to other states to see what is coming our way with increasing climate change. And the faster we start planting these trees, the faster we're maintaining the trees we have, the quicker we will get to making sure that every neighborhood is healthy and safe and strong. My hope for you today and in the coming months and years is that you realize when you dream big, you can actually achieve big. I do remember sitting down with Jad and I sketched this out. We're gonna do true tree equity in every neighborhood and every part of this state. We're not gonna leave anyone behind, and we are going to mobilize all those people who've been working at the nonprofit level, the small community organizations, the tree foundations, the cities. And we're gonna also organize and bring forward people who can see that disparity and want something more for their community, but they may not have known how to get activated and where to act. And we're going to lift this up and build an army that does this work. I remember going back to my team, and they're like, oh God, here she comes with another big idea, a big, hairy, audacious goal, but we have no money. We have no resources. How can we even achieve that? Our budget was around $500,000. That includes staff and grants. We had 2 people to cover the entire state. We had very little to be able to provide grant funding. And my belief is if you don't dream big, then nothing will come of big. That once you put it out into the ethers, anything is possible. But if you don't even dream it or think it or believe in it, it won't happen, right? Our life shrinks or expands in proportion to how much courage you show, right? And this is the kind of courage we don't just want to have, we must have right now. And it's true, we had no money and we had no resources. And the same at the state level of where small budget, it also existed at the federal level, where the urban forestry program at the federal level was around $130 million for the entire country. And again, for our state, it was around $500,000. Well, the great thing is because we did dream big and we acted big and all of you guys mobilized and across this state and across this country have mobilized, we now have over $5 million in our state legislature for urban forestry and achieving tree equity. And at the federal level, we have $1.3 billion, right, to do this work. For this state alone, it's over $15 million, and I know there's even more grants that have come to others, right? And so what I believe is that's just the beginning. That's just the first seeds that we planted. And all we have to do is show that we can transform our neighborhoods, we can transform our communities, we can get to tree equity, and it starts right now today, and it's gotta continue at the state, local, and the federal level as not just nice to haves, but must haves. What I love about this program too, and you're going to be, besides this collaboration and bringing the experts who are in the field, which is all of you, is that we also have a structure to it, which will show the value of this work. One, the data value, right? That now we're being actually principled about making sure we are putting trees and the kinds of nature that we need back into the cities that we divorced and took away, right? And that we're doing it with a true equitable lens to it and a responsibility to that. Because historically, when we did have grants that are small, we only have one person applying for a tree equity with an equitable component, an environmental justice component. And today, most all of our grants in this program are going towards replanting, reforesting those areas that have been divorced and left out. In addition to that, besides the data that American Forest has brought, that we're bringing down to every single neighborhood, we are also embodying the context of workforce development. I have 3 boys. I raised them on a farm. They had to milk the goats, they had to butcher the chickens and the pigs, and I thought I was gonna raise future farmers of America, future foresters, future natural resource experts. They didn't go that way. I think they're gonna come back though. They said, Mom, we'll never be poor again. I go, you weren't poor, you had the greatest opportunity of anyone to actually know where your food comes from and to play in the trees all day rather than in front of your screens. And they're like, they don't see it that way yet, but they're 19, 21, and 25. They're still impressionable. So I think they're going to come back. But the reality is, I know too many of our youth are right now divorced from nature. They're separated, whether it is because they're spending their time in front of screens and in windowless rooms, or because of back to the fact that our communities and our neighborhoods are not equitable and when it comes to our environment. And so part of this is about a workforce development, creating the future foresters and forest managers and stewards and our youth and those who are unemployed, underemployed, those who are our veterans who are right now desperately wanting to heal their bodies and also give back in a way that will help the future. There's also a component in there as somebody who is an attorney who tried to write the first tree ordinance. It is not easy by any means for you in the local communities and government. Our hope here is that we can provide and share policies and practices that some of your own have already created and are working, that others want to borrow and steal and copy, but also that we're bringing that information and source here so you can go faster and accelerate this, because we know that everything you do today will not necessarily be there in the future if we're not putting the policies, practices, and our capital budgets to it. And then I think lastly is that context, which we all love a bit, getting our hands in the dirt and just planting and restoring our trees within our communities. So I just want to say right from the beginning, thank you guys for being here today. I'm hoping that it feels meaningful. I'm hoping that this is just the beginning of our family tree. Truly, we are building a family tree here of people who believe in our trees, not just in our far out natural areas, but right within our most dense urban environments that for too long have not seen trees and had trees, and where we can start to reimagine every single block the same way that I had when I, as a child, in those horse chestnut trees where it shaded the entire street and all of the sidewalks and helped our community. So thank you for investing your time, your energy, your passion, your perseverance, your commitment. Let's go achieve this goal that everybody said is impossible as fast as we can. True tree equity, every neighborhood. Thank you guys for being part of this family tree. Thank you.